Well, thank you very much. A few years ago, when Time magazine decided to include me in in its list of the top 25 evangelicals, a lot of evangelicals were very sure this was a mistake. First, that I would be included in the term evangelical at all, and second, that I would be considered influential in any way. But I think my inclusion was an attempt to redress the problem that we're talking about today. The need to break media stereotypes that equate religious with conservative. I do come from an evangelical background, and perhaps of all backgrounds, it is the most deserving of being associated with a conservative stereotype. But I am an example of a growing shift from the monopoly of the religious right on a conservative ethos. And in fact, I think I'm an example that monologue and domination by the religious right is actually becoming a fact of history rather than contemporary news. There's a broader conversation emerging even among evangelicals, and this new conversation can't be fit into the old Cold War categories of right versus left, Republican versus Democrat, liberal versus conservative. I've spoken in over 20 countries in the last 18 months, and everyone around the world who keeps track of American religious life knows names like Jerry Falwell, Pat Robertson, James Dobson. They all have heard of the Left Behind novels. But they're very surprised to hear that in many ways these names represent a kind of outgoing tide and an aging and I think increasingly fragmenting demographic. And that these A-listers who are the media go-to people do represent one segment of evangelicalism and American religious life, but it is a disproportionately represented sector, as this study makes clear. I'm quite certain, based on my travels abroad and here in the U.S., that even among evangelical Christians, the number of progressive issues are going to be rising in importance, and that old assumptions about voting blocks and all the rest are going to fade quite quickly, including, I think, even in the next this election cycle. I think progressive issues from genocide in Darfur to global climate change, from the extinction of species to fair trade and ethical buying, from bonded labor and exploitive employment practices to political corruption, from the need to replace preemptive war doctrine with developing creative peacemaking strategies, and from the growing gap between rich and poor in income, consumption, education, healthcare, and access to the digital world, to a whole range of other issues that aren't included in the short list of, quote, conservative issues. We're going to find evangelicals, and especially younger evangelicals, paying a great deal of attention to these issues. In the United States, I speak frequently to evangelical, mainline, and Roman Catholic groups, and I am certain that a new spirit is in the air. If under the banner of Roman Catholic we can include both Bill O'Reilly and Senator Kennedy, I think we've got to get used to the fact that under other categories like evangelical, there is a far broader range of voices than many of us are paying attention to. Maybe I could say it like this in closing. If you all were pop culture reporters and you were asked to be reporting on the latest in rock and roll, and you kept talking about Bobby Sherman, the Mamas and the Papas, the Bee Gees, the ABBA, Boy George, and Kurt Cobain, I think we would tell you to change radio stations and get out a little bit more. And I think writers on religion in American life similarly need to realize that the landscape has changed. It's time to update the Rolodex, to check out groups like the Red Letter Christians, groups like Sojourners Call to Renewal, groups like Emergent Village, and others, so that when you think of Jim, you don't stop with Dobson, but that you also include people like Reverend Jim Forbes, who is up next to share with us.